are looking live at a newly reopened Bourbon Street in New Orleans and the Las Vegas Strip as the cities recover. New today, we're learning more about both suspects in the New Year's Day incidents and their connections to North Carolina. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah Morgan.
And I'm Gerald Owens. Here's the newest information we have tonight out of New Orleans. One of the victims on Bourbon Street was 25-year-old Matthew Tenedorio. His family says they begged him not to go out New Year's Eve. The FBI says the New Orleans attacker was 100% inspired by ISIS. President Biden says the suspect, Shamsuddin Jabbar, also had a remote detonator in his truck to set off explosives hidden in coolers.
We also know both men connected to the attack served at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. We have team coverage tonight. WRAL's Sean Gallagher starts off with some specifics on their connections to North Carolina. Sean?
Yeah, Deborah, both of those men served in the Army and spent time here at Fort Liberty. Quite possibly just a coincidence, but far from the only thing the two men shared in common. So we know Shamsuddin Jabbar and Matthew Livelsberger served in the Army and both were stationed here at Fort Liberty. But law enforcement said there's no record they were in the same unit and that they did not overlap. But they both did serve in Afghanistan in 2009. Again, with no indication they were in the same unit, same location, or even in the same province. Now come the similarities in what happened. Both men used the car rental company Turo to rent their vehicles with attacks on New Year's Day. And both vehicles were electric, a Ford F-150 Lightning in New Orleans and a Tesla Cybertruck in Las Vegas.
If these turned out to be simply similarities, very strange similarities to have. And so we're not prepared to rule in or rule out anything at this point.
Despite not having a motive yet in Las Vegas, investigators are not naive to what they're seeing in this case as it relates to Elon Musk and President-elect Donald Trump.
We know we have a bombing, absolutely, and it's a bombing that certainly has factors that raise concern. It's not lost on us that it's in front of the Trump building, that it's a Tesla vehicle, but we don't have information at this point that definitively tells us or suggests it was because of this particular ideology or any of the reasoning behind it.
If there are any differences, it could be in the two men's level of service. Livelsberger was a Green Beret, serving nearly 20 years, but investigators say his plan didn't match up.
The level of sophistication is not what we would expect from an individual with this type of military experience. The components primarily consist of fireworks, mortars, aerial shells, and are all consumer fireworks.
And law enforcement noted the Cybertruck's structural stability likely made the blast go up rather than out, probably preventing more injuries from happening. Now, as far as a motive is concerned, the FBI is still waiting to get access to Livelsberger's phone and his laptop, which could reveal more information about why he did this in the first place. In Fayetteville, Sean Gallagher, WRAL News.
As Sean mentioned, both men served in the military. Researchers have noticed that military members' ties to extremism is a growing trend. WRAL Investigates Sarah Kruger is live at Duke University. Sarah, you talked with counterterrorism experts. What did they say about this?
Gerald, one of those professors I talked to was here at Duke, the other at UNC, and they both want to stress that we're talking about a very small number of people here and a small number of acts. They offered some possible explanations.
An explosion in Las Vegas and an attack in New Orleans, both perpetrated, officials say, by men with ties to the military. UNC professor Navin Boppet says it's part of a growing trend.
It does fit with an empirical pattern that we're seeing since the late 2010s, that we're seeing increasing military participation in some of these groups. Again, it's not huge. It's not like it's an enormous amount. We're all veterans that are coming home doing this, but we are seeing more of it.
Locally and around the country, academics are exploring why. This report out of Maryland found that criminal extremism with a nexus to the United States military is a limited but possibly growing problem that is primarily centered in the veteran community.
Individuals in the military, they join the military because they want to be part of a cause that is bigger than themselves. Well, that's exactly what the terrorists appeal to in these ideologies.
David Schanzer is a professor at Duke and leads the Triangle Center on Terrorism and Homeland Security.
It is possible that people are, maybe more who have that mindset, who came to the military, are maybe ultimately more vulnerable to these kinds of ideas if they become disenchanted with kind of the ethos of the military. Certainly, of our million plus members of the United States Armed Forces, it's very rare for any one individual to be involved in this kind of activity.
In New Orleans,
it's a somber mood, but yet we're a resilient city.
Lifelong resident Tommy Boudreau, who worked for years doing restoration at police crime scenes, says they'll come back stronger.
My hope and prayers is that people will still continue to trust the overall security and safety of our city, and don't power down to this idiot who chose to be radical.
The Super Bowl and Mardi Gras are just weeks away in New Orleans. Officials there say they will be ramping up security for those events. Sarah Kruger, WRAL News, live in Durham.